Hey guys, in this video, I'm gonna talk about. I think in the last couple of videos we have seen users and groups. So, as I've told you before, there are four components which comprises the IAM. Okay, we call it as a four pillars maybe. So those are all. I'll just tell you again. So those are all. One is users, and the other one is user groups, or you just call it as groups, okay? And then roles, and then policies, okay? Just remember that. Let me draw another diagram for you. Okay, here we go. Uh, the crux of this is, crux in the sense, the heart is nothing but this is very important. Okay, for anything you need a policy. Okay, so I'll just give a policy like this. I'm sorry. Yeah, so policies, sorry, here we go. Policies like this. Okay, so I'm just making this as a policies. Okay, and I'm gonna make this one as a user and this one as a group. Okay, so this is the users. Okay, here we go. So this is users and this is groups. One moment. Okay, so this is groups. Yeah. Okay, so Samir, whenever you create any user or whenever you create any group, okay, unless you add any policies, it will not access anything. Okay, so we can say it like it is an explicit deny. Okay, there is a concept called explicit deny, so which is nothing but explicit deny. So unless you add anything, you will not be able to access any of the AWS services. So if you remember in my previous videos, when we create users, I did not add any permissions. Okay, and then I went ahead and added administrator full access or S3 or EC2. Then I got access to that particular services. So we call it as an explicit deny. So whenever you create something, in default there are no policies or there were no permissions attached to it. You have to add it. Okay, so we call that as an explicit deny. Okay, now so Samir, users, I'm sorry. Okay, so users, you have to add policies. Okay, and groups also, if you want to add policies, just add policies, and based on that, okay, so you will be able to access the resources. Okay, so for example, this is multiple resources. Okay, inside the resources we have say we have EC2. Okay, then we have S3, then we have VPC, then we have Athena, then we have Elastic Beanstalk. So like lot of, as I've told you earlier, 180 plus services are available. Okay, so these are all the resources, okay, which is inside this. So after this you will go here and then you will be able to access. Okay, now this is with respect to users and groups. Okay, now if you remember, I was explaining about roles also. Okay, so what do you mean by roles? Where exactly these roles are getting played? So that you need to know. So let me give you another idea of it. So say for example, this is the EC2 service or EC2 machine. You can say this is a EC2 machine. Okay, now there is another service. Okay, for example, S3. Okay, so you are in the EC2 machine, inside the EC2 machine, and for some reason you are trying to connect to the S3 to see the storage or to see the buckets and everything. Don't worry, I will talk about S3 when we are nearing the topic, but this is just to understand the role. So if you want to try to connect from EC2 to S3, there is a concept, okay, so which we call it as roles. Okay, so you have to use a role. You have to create a roles. Okay, ROLS. Okay, and roles will have certain permissions or policies. Okay, and you can add those permissions or policies into the roles, and EC2 will attach that role, and then you can access S3. So roles is like, one particular service is trying to connect to the another service. In order to connect to another service, you need to create a role with the proper policies or with proper permissions. Okay, so the example which I gave it to you right now is, if you are using an EC2 instance and it need to access to an S3 bucket. So this is the EC2 instance, and you're trying to access S3, then you need a role with proper permissions attached to the role. You cannot attach the permissions to the services directly. There is no options for that. That is why we need to create a role for this. Okay, so I hope you guys are clear with that. Okay, now I will so now let's try to create one role for one EC2 in order to access S3. Then it will be clear for you. So let's jump into practical now. I'm opening Chrome, and then okay, sorry. So what is my sign-in URL? I think I've saved it somewhere. Where is my sign-in URL? Okay, here we go. So Control C and then Control V. And my admin account is Samir_admin, and I'm typing my username and password here. Perfect. Now I'm gonna launch one EC2 instance real quick. Okay, so launch instance, free tier. I'm using the first option, select, and T2 micro I've chosen. Next configure, and I'm not changing anything here. Okay, and then click on add storage, add tags. So I'm just giving some tag for now, role checking something, and then configure security group. I'm just using, okay, any security group is fine for now. Review and launch, and then launch. So I'm using the previous key pair. If anybody's stuck on how to create EC2 machines, I think I've clearly explained in my previous videos. You can check there. So now let this instance get launched. Okay. Yeah, so my instance is up and running. Now I'm gonna click on connect and hit on connect. Okay, perfect. So this is just for the explanation purpose. So what I'm going to do here is, I'm just trying to type AWS space S3 space ls. This is one of the command line wherein what it does is it is trying to fetch up what all the list of S3 buckets I have. Okay, so here if you hit on services or just type in S3 here and right click and then open a new tab. So you got the S3 management console here, and here you can see there are two buckets. Okay, just leave the bucket names and all, but you have two buckets. Okay, so now what I'm into this EC2 machine. Okay, this is my EC2 machine. This is my EC2 machine which is running. I'm logged into this EC2 machine. Now I'm trying to connect to the from EC2 machine to S3. So this is one EC2 service to another service. Now it is not working. It's giving me unable to locate credentials, blah, 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 blah. So now how to resolve this? So that is where we are getting the role. So role is nothing but, again, I'll tell you. So role is, what is role? So you have EC2, which I have logged in right now, and this is S3. So this is EC2. and this is S3. Now I'm trying to connect, it's not working. This is from one service and this is another service. Okay, so in order to resolve that, what I will do is I will go to IAM, hit on IAM. So I'm just hitting on roles on the left side. So I'm clicking on create role, and the common use cases, I'm going with EC2 because I'm trying to access something from EC2. Okay, so I'm just hitting on EC2 and then click on next. Now in the policy, I will add S3. So if I hit S3, now I'm just clicking Amazon S3 full access for now, and scrolling down, hitting next, and then hitting next. Now I'll just give something like S3 role from EC2, something like this, or you can give any name, that's okay. So this is a role name and this is a policy I have attached, and I'm clicking on create role. Okay, now the role is created. Okay, the new role is created. Why we have created the role? Because we are trying to connect from EC2 to S3. EC2 is there, S3 is there. So we're trying to connect from EC2 to S3. Now I'm going to the instance here. Okay, before I check anything instance, let me go to EC2 page, EC2, hit here EC2. Now if you remember, role check, this EC2 instance is running. I'm right clicking on it. There is an option called security, and you can click on modify IAM role. Okay, or you can click on actions, you'll get the same thing. Okay, security, modify IAM role, anything is fine. I'm just sitting on modify IAM role. You remember the role which we created. Now if you scroll down, if you click down, you will get S3 role from EC2. Just hit on it. Now hit on save. Now what I did, I created a role and I assigned that role to this instance by right clicking on it, and then security, then modify IAM role. I changed it, I assigned it. Now if I execute the same command, now I will get two buckets, CF templates and cost reporting, which is there here, the same thing. So this is the power of roles. Okay, if one service wants to connect to another service, you can use role. This is basic level of explanation, but we have some advanced also. For example, cross account access and federation access. Maybe as days goes by, I'll explain you on those things in detail, but this is more than enough to kickstart your activities. Okay, so roles are very good. Just try to play around with these roles. What else? Yeah, and I want to tell you about one more thing. Just go for IAM again. Okay, so here there is something called account settings on the left side. Click on account settings, and there is something called password policy. So if you hit on change password policy, so you can change the password policy, like whether you want uppercase letters, lowercase, whether you need numbers, whether you need special characters. So you can set everything. So whoever is trying to whenever you're trying to create a new user, when they're trying to change the password based on this requirement, they have to abide. Okay, so this one is also kind of useful. So password policy. So in this video we have seen the roles and how to attach the roles for a running instance. And I want to tell you one more thing. Say for example, you are running you are trying to launch a new instance. Okay, and then I'm just hitting on launch instance and then free tier, and I'm hitting on select. Now here I'm using T2 micro, and here there is an option called IAM role. So you can select here as well when you're launching an instance from the scratch. So there are two ways. You can modify the role for a running instance, and you can create a new instance, and when you're creating itself, you can choose the IAM role. Yeah.